Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Nader Narrative on Jersey First TV. What would our communities look like if we had more women in positions of leadership? From grassroots volunteerism all the way up to elected positions at all levels of government, how would our community change? Well, I can tell you that women have their own unique perspective on life, right? And what they bring to the table is a little bit different than their male counterparts. Ultimately, women are great community leaders because of their compassion, their ability to be collaborative and creative, and the perspective that they bring that's just so different. We need more women in positions of leadership, from all the way from PTA and school board up to elected officials. So, women of New Jersey, get excited because today's show is for you and about you. It's about helping you understand why your skill set and your life experience is so important to our community, how all the things that you want to see in your local school board, in your city, in your state, in your country, you can change. You can change if you get involved, and we need you to get involved. So we want to talk today about why that's important and how we can give you tools to help you do that. And to that end, I am really excited to bring to the show somebody who is really dedicated. She has dedicated her life to this. Emily Lampkin, welcome to Jersey First. You are the consummate woman fighter for all women to help them understand their role in our community. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled. This is my favorite topic.
Well, you have such a long resume that it would take a good part of the show just to read it. But it is important to talk about what you've done and your experiences because it really molded who you are and what you care about. You have the Lampkin group right now, which is a public affairs group. And of course, we're going to talk today about how the Leadership Institute has brought you on. But Emily, give the audience an idea of what you've done with your career and with your life, because it's really unique. Your experience is tremendous, and it all kind of comes together in what we're talking about today. So give us a little insight into your background.
Sure. I will start it. When I was young, I had parents, while it wasn't their career, involved us in politics, in campaigns, in local community activities. Me and my sisters grew up doing just this work. One of my memories from high school is my older sister. I couldn't drive yet, could move the car into first gear so I could jump out, put a yard sign in, and get back in the car without us having to stop. So we learned from the best, from my mom, and we'll talk about this further, who was a leader but had never seen herself as that, was a leader in our community. And I took this as my goal. This was always where my passion lied. I ran for office for the first time when I was in college. And I think what surprised me most at that time, and I think we need more of this in 2023, was I was elected to student government. The slate for president that I wasn't supporting won. And the man who became the president at my university said, I'm going to put you on the committee on the status of women on this campus. Even though you don't agree with me on many of the issues, you have an important voice on this campus, and I want to make sure there's a place for it. So that was an early lesson in what you were talking about being collaborative, allowing women leadership roles, and realizing there's different perspectives among women. So I will always appreciate Barry for allowing me that opportunity and learning that lesson. Sure. I worked in campaigns after that. I worked in the Republican Congressional Committee that elects Republicans to the House of Representatives. One of my earliest jobs was working for one of the most important grassroots conservative women who taught me invaluable lessons. That was Phyllis Schlafly. Irregardless of what people think about her politics, sure, she was incredible in terms of her understanding of the power of women and women who had different jobs and different responsibilities outside of politics, but understanding they had to have a voice and they needed to be a part of the process. I've worked on a presidential campaign for George W. Bush, and I ended up working in the administration running public affairs campaigns and then decided once I had my own firm years later that I could go back to focusing a good amount of my time, and I have great stories to tell you, involving women in my community and politics and providing counsel to women who were running for office or in office and making sure that they had the tools necessary to be successful.
So really so many details to that. And I've read through what you've done. It's incredible. But I love what you said about your mom, because we have to think about the women who inspire us, right? That she didn't realize that she was a grassroots leader. She wasn't intending to be that. I would assume she was just stepping out, doing what she could to make life better for you guys, to show you an example of what we have to do. How has it changed from her generation to our generation as it relates to women leadership roles in the community? And I'm talking local, right? Nothing that they don't get their name in the paper, but how has that changed?
So in certain ways, I think it's changed dramatically. I think women in our generation recognize they can take leadership roles and have, in many ways, learned skills that weren't provided to the generation before us in how to be a leader and what's important. And of course, self-confidence. You can do this. Anybody can do this. At the same time, I think that in lots of ways, things haven't changed because I think there are still a lot of women who, like my mom, don't see themselves in leadership roles, and they absolutely are. And so we can talk about the program I'm involved in now, but the whole goal of that is to identify them and say, good news, you're already leading. You just don't know you are. And somebody identifying them as a leader goes a long way. And then any of the apprehension they may have, we try and cover in the first time we spend time with them by giving them skills that are useful to have, but even as important, skills that give them self-confidence to go ahead and take and stand up and say, I'll do that. I can do that.
We were going to talk about that training because ultimately that's what's so exciting for women in New Jersey that's coming to the state. But you know, it's interesting, as moms especially, we often will volunteer to do things that surround our children. So whether that be in PTA or perhaps a class mom, and these are moms who are working, not working, all kinds of moms. But the moment someone says to you, you're a leader, there seems to be this, desire to pull back and say, wait a minute, I don't see myself that way. I'm just volunteering. And if you take that all the way to an elected official, if you take that all the way to identifying candidates who can represent their constituents well, there is a leap that has to be made from the things you're already doing, women, the things that you do easily, that you do because you're driven to help your children or help your school. And you're doing it in addition to all the other thousands of things we do every day, right? It's a leap, though, isn't it, Emily, from, oh, I'm doing that just because I'm doing that and I love doing that, all the way to saying, wait a minute, you may be someone who can actually make change on a broader scale. So how do we take women from saying, yeah, I'll be the school class mom, right, who I'm also working a really intense job, but, oh, wow, I may actually be someone who can run for city council. I may be someone who can run for Congress. How do we make that leap?
Well, the first step in the leap that there is data that supports this, women have to be asked to run. And they have to be asked repeatedly. So all of us need to make it a practice that if we ourselves or have friends or colleagues or women we know in the community who we think would be great leaders for us, we need to ask them, have you considered this? I'm going to ask you personally to consider this and to run for office. I will support you. I will make sure that we put you in touch with people who can provide the right resources and experiences that you will need to be successful. Because who wants to run unless you're going to be successful? We want them to be successful in this. So step one is asking someone to run. And then there's two secrets that I don't think women fully realize that we have, and frankly have in most cases over men. Number one, a network of people. How many others we come in contact with on a weekly basis in our community and know and visit with. And that is partly of who we are in women. If it's at the grocery store, if it's playing tennis, if it's picking kids up from school, 4-H, Girl Scouts, all sorts of activities. We have an incredible network.
Mm.
And that's really important if you're going to run for office. Who's in your network? Who already knows Elizabeth's name, knows who she is, and respects her, even before they know her positions on issues? They say, that's a woman I respect. I know that's somebody I like. And then the other skill that women have is storytelling. Not yammering a bunch of data at
Yeah.
somebody, not giving some kind of in-depth, that has nothing to do with my life. But women are great candidates because they can relate, because we all have the same fundamental goals. We want safe communities. We want kids who are thriving. We want businesses that are successful. We want to have a great life. And it's really important to us, because we are empathetic souls, that everybody else is coming along with us on this. So
True.
it's not just about me, and it's not just about Elizabeth's family. It's about families who frankly can't help themselves, and us wanting everybody to come along with our success.
That is so true. It's such the nature of the way our minds work. But there is a mindset shift, isn't there? So from developing someone from really local involvement, school involvement, grassroots involvement, all the way up to something bigger, but so many different levels. People listening to this saying, well, I don't ever want to run for office. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But we can use leaders and grassroots. And there are skills that's interesting. I watch people, Emily, in a school setting, and I use that often because I think a lot of people can relate to it. Well, they may raise money for a class trip, or they may raise money for something that the school wants done, or something at church. But the moment it turns into something where it's a grassroots effort, suddenly they think, I don't have the skill set. Yet they do. Emily, we're doing this naturally. We need the confidence. We need the mindset shift that says, wait, that skill set that I have innately, and that I've used it for something I care about and passionate about, I can now apply the same thing to an issue that's bothering me. That's not the way I want to see our community, our state, our nation. What is that mindset shift to take them from, that school mom and someone who's effective on the job, to say, wait a minute, I can actually use that in a broader way?
First, all of us need to realize we can affect change in a positive way. And in order to do that, you're right, there has to be a mindset shift. And everybody's not going to get there. Some people get there immediately. Some people take years to get there. One of the reasons I am doing this program with the Leadership Institute, and one of the ways I describe who we're looking for to participate, is I say we're looking for 4 groups of women. Women who are, first of all, already holding office. Women who are already filed as candidates for office. The third group is women who are thinking about running for office. And the fourth group is women who are thinking about definitely not running for office.
Yeah.
Because we need the support of all of them. And by creating a network of like-minded conservative women, we are changing communities, irregardless of what job you decide you're going to take in that process.
Yeah, that is true. Let's talk about the Leadership Institute, because they've been around for a while and they have incredible programs. I've taken programs from them, just something that's caught my eye and decided to enroll, and it's always enriched me. And it's not just for people running for office. It helps you in so many ways. But they came to you, obviously, with your incredible background and everything that you've seen and learned and advocated for, and said, let's develop something to be able to get women across the country from the conservative bent, right, begin to understand how they can use their skill set, as we've talked about, on all different levels. So talk a little bit about the Leadership Institute and why you think this partnership with them is so effective.
So I will start by saying I went to them.
Oh, you went to them.
Because I'm a woman leader, I have a long-standing relationship. One of my first jobs out of school was an opportunity that Morton Blackwell, who founded the Leadership Institute, gave me, that frankly, looking back, a girl my age shouldn't have gotten. And not only did I have the opportunity, but Morton Blackwell is a game changer. He gave me all the support and confidence to be successful at a job that may have been too big for me at the time. So I am always grateful for him for developing, frankly, at least this woman leader and a lot more, thousands and thousands more. I certainly do not speak for the Leadership Institute, but I had gone to them. We have had a longstanding relationship. I know the quality, as you're saying, of their work. And I had this thought, just what we were talking about, Elizabeth. There are these women leading all over the country. They don't necessarily run out to sign up for something political,
Right.
but they sure can use the skills. And as we all know, during COVID, so many of these women had stuck their heads up and said, whatever is going on here is not working for my children.
Right.
So I need to do something. And I wanted to create an environment where we could identify more of them and get them involved in skills in the hopes of creating a pipeline over decades of women who will lead. The Leadership Institute is a nonpartisan organization. I always say we're looking for conservatives. And I also say that, what does it mean to be a conservative? If you believe you should have a voice in your child's education, you're one of us.
Yes.
If you believe your small business is likely overregulated, you're one of us. So there's lots of opportunities for people to come and be a part of a movement where they may not run for office, or they may in the future.
Yeah. Well, your timing is incredible, and you bringing this idea to them, I think the blessing of COVID, if I can make that statement, is the amount of involvement that parents took and necessitated, but then it became like, wait, what's going on in our schools here, right? And we've seen such a spike, an increase of parents who are outraged, involved, and wanting to do something. So your timing, Emily, I think is perfect, as moms especially say, how do I get my arms around this? I'm not okay with this. And it is very much nonpartisan. As you say, that's a very good way to say it. If you want any voice in your children's schooling and their future, your businesses, whatever, then you are conservative. And you identifying that spike right now, and it's there, and being able to develop them, I think is amazing. So you went to the Leadership Institute, said, I think the time is now. We have an opportunity to fill a pipeline, which again is so smart. A lot of times people will say they get to the ballot in November and they say, this choice, that choice, where are our choices? Well, our choices need to be developed years before, and we need to continue to look for those people and support them. So what does this training look like at a high level? What is part of it? What will people experience when they come to this training?
Our initial training is 1 3-hour period, and our goal is to get your feet wet, walk out of there learning something new, and creating a network of like-minded conservative women. So we really focus in on 3 skills. We are going to do basic message development. How do you create a message? And of course, just as important, what is someone going to say who disagrees with me? And how do I have my response already? And how do I hone in on what my message is and not get caught up in all the negativity? Message should be driven from a positive point. The second is fundraising. You and I talked about it. And fundraising is important both in political campaigns, but it's also important, as you were mentioning, in our community. And so teaching women new skills. How do you go about raising money from a large donor, a small donor? How do you get comfortable asking for money? And the third is using social media. And so many of us are so good at posting something on Facebook or looking at cute pictures from our friends. But what is a LinkedIn account, and what's its value to me? What would I put on Instagram? And utilizing all these resources, what do I do if someone comes after me on social media? How do I respond? So providing those skills. I have to let you in on our biggest secret of this activity, which is probably the most exciting and is probably the biggest recruitment tool we have for getting women to participate. We invite them to bring their teenage daughters with them. Again, we're creating a pipeline, and it serves twofold. We are teaching women from an early age, you can lead. You should be the president of your sorority. You should run for student government. You should be the chairman of your crew team or your lacrosse team. You can absolutely put your hand up and say, I can do that. And giving them the confidence. Also, we learn when we're recruiting women to run for office, usually their biggest problem with running is they've convinced themselves, what's my family going to do if I'm run for office? And when you have a daughter saying, Mom, you could totally do this, you would be incredible, it's a game changer. It's a
Yeah.
game changer for recruiting women to run for office.
The family buys in. It strikes me as you're talking, and we look back, we look at the 60s and 70s and into the 80s and how we really encouraged women to get into the workforce, right, in a big way, to break the glass ceiling. There's still some of that, of course, going on. We continue to do that, but now it's sort of shifting. Okay, we've done that, right? We continue to reach. You and I have both had intense careers. We do that, but now it's sort of going back to say, hey, guys, by the way, it's incredible to use those skills to change the community. And maybe we left it to men for too long. I mean, nothing against men. I love our men working together, but maybe where we weren't in the 80s and the 90s was in the community enough and impacting what was happening on the local level, because we know that's where the power is, right? That's where everything starts, is on the local level. So we can impact that. We can change things at the state level, and it has the domino effect. Do you think we're in a good place with women at the national level? How do you, I'm curious how, when, you're an insider in DC in the best way, if I can make that, like, the consummate insider is what I saw quoted about you. So you have a sense of what's going on there. How do you see women represented on the national level, and are we where we need to be?
I am unequivocally positive about the role of women and the kind of female leadership we have in Washington, D.C., and frankly, in state capitals and local government all over the country. Yeah. We'll start with, a few weekends ago, I was with a group called Run Gen Z.
I know them. They're great.
They're exceptional. Yes. And I'm sitting in a room humbled because there is a group of what I would call generally 25-year-old women who are either running for office or current office holders, mayors, state legislators, exceptional women, some congressional candidates, and they're asking me for advice. And I think, shoot, we should all be asking you for advice. You're so exceptional. So we'll start with the pipeline is exceptional out there. And every year when there's elections in this country, we have more and more young women and women of more experience who are stepping up and participating in the process. And just as important, because I am a firm believer in the beauty of our government is that it's representative. And are we there? No, we can get there in a second. Definitely not there. But we also have many more women of color, women of different backgrounds who are stepping up and participating. And I always say, as much as I am a conservative, I much prefer somebody involved than somebody not involved. And if it's somebody who doesn't agree with what I agree with, but will participate in the process, I applaud them every time, because our government doesn't work unless people are participating. And we have an exceptional amount of new voices and new backgrounds who are participating in the process in all sorts of ways. We have a lot of work to do.
Yes, we do.
More and more opportunities to do this. And I think one thing that we learned, without giving away too much, in this town is that the women in power, both downtown and in elected office, needed to step up and say to one another, and then to say to men, we want to make sure that there's women leading on committees that matter. Yeah. But that we are expecting that women are going to get leadership roles in the House and the Senate, and using our voices to make sure that, regardless, again, if we're office holders or just people who interact with members on a regular basis, that we're making it clear that that's important to us and we're watching what's happening.
Yeah, it's one thing to be elected. It's another thing to be put in positions where you can affect change, in a more powerful way. And that, of course, means leadership positions on these committees. And often the public doesn't think about that, but ultimately that's where the power is. I heard you interviewed once about, it was recent, about a poll, and it struck me. You said something like women in their 50s feel invisible. And it was fascinating to me, because I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Talk a little bit about that.
So it was data that the AARP, along with this incredible group run by Rachel Pearson called Engage, which she runs looking at women and pocketbook issues all over the country, had gone and talked to women all over the country over the age of 50 about what they thought of policy. I hope I get this right because I'm speaking for them, policy, elections. And one of the things these women came back with, well, we'll pause because there's really one note, first of all, that's interesting. So many of them are caretakers. And just like we were talking before about roles of leadership, they also don't consider themselves caretakers. They care for parents. They may care for a spouse who needs extra help because of health concerns. They may be taking care of a special needs child. And unbelievably, they may be taking care of all three. And they say, oh, I'm not a caretaker. I'm just a mom. Or I'm not a caretaker. I'm just a wife who's taking care of my husband. And so they have an immense amount of responsibility and an immense stress on their life. And really, if I'm going to paraphrase what they found, it was two things. Number one, you're right, that they think that oftentimes with politicians, they're just invisible. And in part, it's because what they want first is don't make my life any more difficult than it already is.
Yes.
I have a lot on my plate. If you all can go about your jobs and not make it worse, that'd be great. And so I guess for politicians and office holders, they're in a good starting point. The bar is low to outperform this crowd. And that's why I think women candidates are so important. When I received that data from Rachel, I ran out and shared it with a number of candidates because especially the women candidates, I said, this is where you're going to do your best work because you can walk in a room and acknowledge you're not invisible. I see you. I know what your life looks like. We live similar lives. And that's the power of women candidates. And that's the power of, as you're saying, the importance of groups like Engage and AARP getting this data and then making sure it's in the hands of decision makers in this country.
That is incredible insight. It's so simple, but yet so true and powerful. And as I hear you saying that, I'm seeing the faces of so many women I know. And you're right. They just want you to tell them, I'm going to make your life easier, or at least I'm not going to make it more difficult, and to recognize where they're at. And that's a huge voting block. And so that's another show, Emily. I think we should at some point just do a show on that. And I mean, anybody running for office needs to perk up and listen to that, right? So as we start to close, I want to just focus a little bit more on this training and just let the audience know you're going to hear more about this as we get closer to the spring. And Jersey First, which of course was founded by Rosemary Becky, who's a good friend of yours. And I know you were very supportive of her run for Congress. And that was an important run for us here in New Jersey. She's a powerful woman who really fights for all of us to step up and to bring our talents to bear to make change. So Rosemary and Jersey First is committed to helping bring this to New Jersey. So we will have a series of trainings, more about it later. Hoping to start maybe April, May, Emily, something like that.
Sometime this spring, yes.
Okay, great.
We are out in many states across this country, either already training or organizing so we can come in and start meeting women of all ages and making sure that they are in the best position possible to change their communities.
And again, as Emily says to the audience, this is about changing your community. So don't just hear candidate and shut down, because you know, if you are a New Jersey mom, the grassroots effort here has grown tremendously, and there's a position for you in that. And it can be any number of things. So it may just be that, or it may be that somebody right now who's listening is another congressional candidate, or who knows what. And so we want to identify those people, and it only serves to improve our communities. So to those of you listening, reach out to info@Jersey First, Jersey, and then 1st.org. so that you can get on our email list. We'll let you know. Emily, I want to thank you for stepping out and again, doing something groundbreaking with your experience and your talent and your willingness to do this and come to New Jersey. It'll be exciting to have you here and really changing our politics, because I'll tell you what, if we can get these women involved, even on the local level, we're going to see in 10 years how we've taken back our communities, right?
It does nothing but makes our country a better place to live. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you. And I want to just take this moment and make sure that all the women out there listening right now know we want you to run for office. We want you to step up. There's an important role you'll play in our future.
Absolutely. And we can get you there. The support is there. And it's not just nationwide, it's local groups. You can do more than you think. You have a purpose that's bigger than you know, and we need everyone to walk in their purpose. So Emily, thank you so much. We will have you back. I think this issue is fascinating and there's so much more we can dig into, but we're definitely going to see you this spring. So more info coming on that. And Emily, thank you again for everything you do.
You're welcome. Can't wait. Thank you.
All right, great. And to my audience, guys, we'll see you next week.